Well, it's the end of May. I've got my best and worst of April 2017 countdown videos up, and now it's time for May. Now, May currently is a pretty small list. I've only seen 8 movies. Only 8 major release films came out in May in any of the theaters in my hometown. So I've got a best of 5 and a worst of 3. So of course there's plenty of movies I haven't seen yet, so I'll list off a few that probably could have made the list. The Lovers, Chuck, Last Men in, not sure how to pronounce that country or city or whatever it is. Hounds of Love, which looks twisted as hell. I'll even add Dead Awake on here because even though it probably is a crummy horror movie, the premise is nice because it deals with sleep paralysis, which is a pretty scary thing and reminds me of the documentary that I saw, which was it called Nightmares? Something to do with nightmares. Wakefield looked good. Berlin Syndrome also looks good. And War Machine, which is a Netflix movie, so I can see that pretty much any time. And I think The Survivalist actually came out in the US finally, so I think that was in the UK last year and we got it this year. So those are a few movies that I haven't seen that probably could have made the list, and there's a bunch more that I am completely uncertain about. But let's start our list at number 5, best of May 2017 so far for me, is Snatched. Now I'm not going to talk too much about a lot of the films in my list, in my best of and worst of, because out of the 8 films that I saw, I think I only reviewed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So I've got 7 movies to review from May. But anyway, Snatched, I was not looking forward to it. It didn't look good. A lot of people hated it. I think it's one of the most hated films out of the movies that I've seen. For the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, it's one of the most hated films. That and Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I believe. And again, this is judging off of just the movies that I saw, not all the movies of this year. And so I wasn't looking too forward to this. My sister really wanted to see it, and I was still curious enough where I'm like, okay, I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it no matter what because I'm going to review it. And surprisingly, I found it funny. Easily the funniest comedy, or at least the funniest straight-up comedy of this year so far for me. I did not expect to say that. It was funny. There was some dark humor in it. I liked the actresses. The actresses did phenomenal. Goldie Hawn and, what's her name again? Amy Schumer. They did fine. They were good. They actually had some dramatic moments and they were funny together. They had good chemistry. It was surprisingly well done. I like some of the dark humor in it. There was a few running jokes that it had me. I laughed. This is the most I laughed in a theater so far this year, opposed to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and the Lego Batman movie. But those aren't straight up comedies. They're also superhero films as well. This is a straight up comedy. Of course, it is flawed. It isn't perfect. It was mostly just an okay movie. I think some of the character arcs and some of the character developments were forced and weren't all that natural for this movie. There's a few jokes here and there that don't quite fit with the overall theme and the overall movie. There's some editing issues, I feel, some CGI that doesn't really look that good, and there's one scene in particular that I absolutely hated. Yes, it's a movie that I ultimately like, but there is one thing in this movie that I could not stand, and it has to deal with the tapeworm. Completely unnecessary. There's part of it that's funny, but at the same time, once they're trying to extract the tapeworm, it just becomes completely unfunny. And it takes a while for the humor to actually get going as well. But hopefully I'll talk a little bit more about this when I ultimately review it. My number 4 is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Now, I'm a fan of the Pirates movies. I've liked all 4 of the previous ones, and as long as it was pretty much similar to those 4, I was going to like it. And I did. If you're a fan of the other 4 movies, and you don't feel that it gets old, and if you're not tired of seeing Johnny Depp play as Captain Jack Sparrow, then you're going to like this movie. It was fun, the actors were good, I liked the villain in this movie, I thought he was pretty damn awesome. I like the visual effects of this movie. There are some here and there that look really bad, but there are other times where it looks good and has a style to it that I can't deny. I love the look of the ghosts and the undead people in this movie. And at the same time, it is kind of funny trying to think of what it might have looked like on set, because they probably had suits of green or blue, whatever they used, whether it was green screen or blue screen, and it was probably just here and there. I mean, there's this one ghost, I'm sure you can call him ghost, where it's just his hat in his hand, everything else is completely gone. But I like that the ghosts and why they look the way they do completely makes sense. Including why Javier Bardem's hair looks like it's always flowing and looks really crazy and wild is because he died in the water and it sort of imitates hair being in the water. This one also felt like it tied in more to the original trilogy than the fourth one did. The fourth one feels like a side adventure, and this one feels like a little bit more of a continuation. I liked the goal of this movie in trying to end all the curses of the sea. It was still fun, it was still vibrant, and the newcomers were good, and the characters that we've seen time and time again were still good. There's only a few issues that I have with the film, and those issues are probably why I would probably say this is my least favorite of the 5 Pirates films. And it's because even though it sticks with formula, and the formula is pretty solid at times, there are a few times where it feels like it sticks to the formula to its fault. Like it feels like it adds a few things just because it's part of the formula, and they don't quite fit or they don't quite mesh as well with the rest of the film, and they feel like they're just thrown in there just to add to the formula that all the other films had. Such as 2 comic relief pirates and the one British Navy captain that always has to be a villain in this movie who is completely unnecessary in the overall film. Alright, my number 3 was another fun fantasy adventure. It is King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword. If you're a Guy Ritchie fan, you most likely will like this film. But here's the thing, don't go into it as a fan of King Arthur. Unfortunately, I feel that some people went into it, well, most people probably went into it thinking it's going to be a little bit more of a classic King Arthur. But once I heard Guy Ritchie is directing it, and once I saw the trailer, I thought, you know what? This is not going to be typical King Arthur. This is not going to be classic King Arthur. Guy Ritchie's going to have his style. He's going to modernize it. He's going to do things different. And that's what I went into the film expecting, and that's what I got, and that's what I ultimately liked. Does it mess with the formula? Does it mess with the mythology of King Arthur a little too much sometimes? Yeah, I feel that way. There are still elements in there that are sprinkled into the film and done in a different, unique way, but ultimately the theme of the movie, the character arc of Arthur, still feels something you'd expect from a King Arthur movie. The same sort of character arc you'd expect from a boy, or in this case a young man, pulling a sword out of a stone, becoming the born king, meant to rule, but doesn't really want to rule, doesn't have that aspiration of ruling a kingdom because he had a pretty ordinary life. Well, not ordinary, just common or low life, if you might add. The visual effects were breathtaking, pretty damn good. There's one fight scene where it goes in slow-mo with King Arthur where everyone looks like, including King Arthur and all the people he kills because he's using Excalibur. Everything looks really fakey in that scene for me, but everything else looked pretty damn fine, including the big bad guy boss battle at the end. Charlie Hunnam did a good job, Jude Law did a good job, everyone did good. I liked him. For me, it's not a great film, it's just a really fun film that I enjoyed. Alright, my number 2, I'm a big Alien fan, my number 2 is Alien Covenant. Now, unlike a few people, I like pretty much almost all the Alien films. I did enjoy the 4th Alien film, but I haven't seen it in so long, and so I might see it once again and realize, oh, this one's not that good. But I can definitely say the original trilogy, the first 3 Alien movies, I definitely genuinely like. The first two obviously being the best. And at that same time, I do like Prometheus. And I was expecting this to be a bit of a bridge between Prometheus and Alien, and that's what you get. You get a little bit of Prometheus mixed in with Alien, and I think the two elements mesh pretty well. Ultimately, you're getting a Prometheus movie and an Alien movie at the same time, and some of the Prometheus elements do mix well with the Alien stuff, and while you think, oh, you're not truly getting an Alien experience until the last act of the film, the Prometheus stuff with the sort of white alien things do have a very similar theme of aliens bursting out of people, and that sort of mixes pretty well. Even if those aliens are coming from spores rather than a facehugger. Visually, it was pretty damn amazing. Directing was amazing. Acting was good. Characters could be a little bit better, but you don't get a lot of the characters, and you don't get a lot from even some of the main characters in the movie. And the themes of Prometheus do pass on to this film, so if you're not a fan of the Prometheus themes, and you'd rather have the same kind of themes of the original Alien movies, then you might be a little disappointed there. You could feel that it's reaching too far, it's trying to be too smart for its own good. I ultimately still thought it was a pretty decent job of it. For Alien purists, they're not going to like it. For Prometheus purists, they're not going to like this either. You got to go into it expecting a blend of both, and I can understand that Prometheus fans will hate it, and Alien fans will hate it, and only a few people that liked both films will ultimately like this one. So I can understand why the audience score is a lot lower than the critic score on this one. But of course, my number one is the only movie I reviewed so far in May, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, so I was excited, I was pumped for this one. This one, still highly enjoyed. Gave it 4.5 stars on my review. And it's one of those weird things where all the elements, everything in the story itself, should be better than Guardians of the Galaxy. It should be better than the first one. Kind of like Age of Ultron should have been better than the Avengers, but something's sort of missing. I love the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was very much more character-driven. Every character had an arc, even some of the side characters. They all had an arc, they all had a story, they all had a motivation, they all had something that they were dealing with. They all sort of had inner demons, if you want to call it that. And so instead of a big plot-driven movie, you get a smaller, even though, well, smaller scale, I would say. I mean, there's still big action moments, but it's more character-driven. It's more about these characters learning something about themselves and dealing with something about themselves and others and relationships, and it all revolves around family, the theme of family, which ultimately ties into the main story of this film, which is Peter Quill finding out who his father really is, finding out his destiny, and discovering some crazy truths. All the previous actors and actresses had solid performances and were very similar to what you'd expect from the first one, or would expect in a sequel, while some of the side characters that were not given a lot to do in the first one were fleshed out a lot more in this one, and the new characters were really great. It has a far more memorable and really impactful story because of the deeper meanings, because of the character developments, because all these characters are dealing with something that all revolves around the plot. And it's not them just trying to find some artifact that is going to possibly destroy the world and them having to save said universe from the artifact. It's not like your typical thing. So yeah, story, characters, all better than the first one. Unfortunately, there's something not quite right for the second one that keeps it from being better than the first one, at least in my opinion, and that is the editing is a little wonky when you're trying to get to all these different stories of all these different characters. How they're added in and blended into the movie feels a little chaotic and a little hectic, a little too jarring sometimes, and it does seem to be missing that sort of spark. For me, I love a band of heroes. I love the origin story of bands of heroes getting together, them not liking each other, having to work with each other and figuring out who they are and bonding and having a relationship. That's the first Guardians of the Galaxy because they're teaming up. By the second one, they're already a team. Yes, they have some issues here and there, but they're pretty much a team and they're working together. And it's not that sort of build-up and all these oddball characters having to work together to stop some bigger cause, some bigger evil. Which is similar to Avengers. Avengers had that spark. Ultron didn't have that spark either. But I still loved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and it's easily one of my favorite movies of the year so far. So, those are my top movies of May 2017 so far. Which movies have you seen of this list? Which ones do you like? What are your favorite movies of May 2017? And if you like this countdown and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews and countdowns of 2015, 2016, or 2017. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.